Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Parenting in the Trenches. It is great to see you here today. I am Dr. Tanya Farron. I am here with Dr. Misbah Qureshi. However, she looks like she's having a little technical difficulty. She popped out. She's coming right back in. I think we have her back now. There you are. Welcome, Dr. Q. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Tanya. I am doing amazing. How are you?
I am great. I'm excited to be here tonight.
I am thrilled as well. We have such an amazing series lined up for everyone today. And I can't believe it's like literally our first one.
Yeah, this is it.
It's
Like we're
January
here.
28th. We're in January 2025 and January's over.
Yeah,
How
hard to believe.
time passes by so fast, right? And you and I had talked about this series like a few months ago, and we put it together. And I can't believe it's actually our first day today.
I know. It's exciting. I think it was October we started talking about this. Well, we met about a year ago, year and a half, probably about a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
Something along that line, and both have a passion for working with families, and said
Mhm.
we've got to collaborate and do a great project together. And so this is where we are, and we were able to meet this fall and come up with a great lineup. So want to let everybody know that we are going to be here on the last Tuesday of every month. And we are going to be having a different topic that relates to parenting. And we're really excited about having that available for you. Do you want to add anything
Yeah.
else? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should talk a little bit about our work, right? And how we got to putting this series together, because obviously it didn't happen overnight. It definitely required a lot of education, a lot of training, right?
Yes.
Getting PhDs for both of us. But the real world experience is what led us to want to do this series, parenting in the trenches. So I would love to start talking a little bit about my experience, and Dr. Tanya, you can talk about your experience and how we have found each other last
Absolutely.
year.
You take it away. You
Yeah,
go first. Absolutely.
yeah, great. So I am Dr. Misbah Qureshi. I am coming live from Towson, Maryland, here. Um, and so I am a trained marriage and family therapist. So I started studying families back in 2002, I believe. I think that's when I went to my undergrad. I started my undergrad, got a bachelor's in family studies, then went on to get my master's and my PhD in family therapy. And I can't tell you how happy I am and how content I am with that decision in my life, even though it was very difficult. I was actually supposed to go to med school, traditional med school, like every other immigrant child, right? But I decided, you know what, mom and dad, I'm going to do something different. And here I am 20 years later, working in the trenches with all different types of families. So the work that I do is relational at its core, hence the relational trauma expert. I love seeing families and couples in my therapy room. In my private practice, I have an amazing center here with a lot of different rooms that are comfy, that are very soothing. And in here, we do some magical healing work, which requires people showing up in a lot of different ways. It requires a lot of courage because you're challenging yourself and who you are and how you have come to be who you are in some of the unhealthy ways. So there's a lot of great work that's done here. And with that, I have found myself working with parents in different generations, even grandparents who are parenting, co parenting after divorce, co parenting without not even being married, right? Just partnership that started, which led to conceiving some children. And yet you guys decided to part ways, right? Which is good when you know it's not working. And yeah, I would thoroughly say I enjoy it very, very much. So I'm very eager to give back all the information that I have gathered over the years to you guys.
I love that. I love that. So Dr. Q has the, that clinical side of it. And a little bit about me, I have been in education. I say a little bit, but it's been a long career. I have been in education for about 30 years now. Started out as an elementary school teacher, transitioned to being an elementary school principal, a high school principal, and a middle school principal. And I've worked with thousands of kids and parents, and just really helping them navigate through this thing we call parenting. And one of the things that has really struck me to my core is that I think people so often feel that when we become a parent, we just instinctually should know all of the answers. We should just know how to be perfect right off the bat. And so for me, the most exciting thing for my career has been to be able to really help parents and guide them along their parenting journey, and to help them feel comfortable in asking questions and looking for support. And I absolutely have enjoyed that. And so with that being said, I have had many years of experience just in the role that I've had in my career, as well as when you are surrounded by educators every day who have their degrees, multiple degrees in education and psychology and child development and all of those types of things, and working closely with school counselors, special education teachers, bless you, you're learning so many things that I felt blessed to have so many people at my disposal when I was raising my kids. And so with that being said, it led me to write my book, which is in the comments section here, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual. And we'll get into the book a little bit today too, but it was one of those things that I was like, I spent so much time talking to parents, I had to write it down. I had to write down all of these great things that were successful for families. So excited to be here today and start this journey with you. So I've got that education practical side. I'm also a mom. I have two daughters who are in their 20s, one married, one's not, and they're on their own. And so been a parent for a long time. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, no, that is so exciting. And you'll be able to bring that real life experience as we talk about transitioning developmental stages, right? As your child goes from infancy to elementary to middle teen and then into adulthood, right? You've actually experienced it as a mother, and you've been able to use your personal experience and your professional experience to show up differently for the parents you did work with in the school system. Like myself, one of the things I take, I'm very, that I think is very significant is when you can intertwine your personal life into your professional work, because that's where the healing really happens. That's when somebody connects with you and understands and listens because they know you've been there. When you haven't been there, I don't know how cooperative people are to listen to you. And I only say that because I remember being a young therapist in my 20s. And I remember parents asking me, "Do you got any kids?" And I was like, "No." and my answer at that time, because I was young, right? I didn't have that confidence. Like, you would see a shift change in me, right? I would become anxious and start questioning myself around how am I going to help them? And 20 years later, guess what? My answer hasn't changed to that question.
Right.
I'm still not a mom yet. However, as a family therapist who has a lot of clinical experience, but also, personal experience, work, seeing children, being an aunt, right?
Sure.
Um, and working with children, I can confidently say, yeah, I can tell you a whole lot about effective parenting. I don't have to be a parent or a mom to be able to do that, because it all goes down to connection, right? Connecting with the person. Of course, we're going to talk about these areas a little bit more in detail, right? The word connection in itself seems so big, right? So what we have is our series will tackle one different topic every month for the next 12 months. And tonight's topic, we decided we wanted to start off with discussing parenting as a lifetime commitment. A lifetime
Absolutely.
commitment. So what does that mean? It means if you have joined and got on that roller coaster, you can't get off.
There's no getting off. There is
There's
no getting off.
getting
No
off.
getting off. You cannot get off the roller coaster. And, I want to just acknowledge some of the people for a minute. Thank you, Damien, for joining us here today. And Manoj, did I say that correctly? I hope I did.
Yep,
Manoj,
Manoj.
thank you for being here. And Nancy, thank you so much. And
Nancy,
Christy, thank you so much
welcome.
for being here. Henry, thank you for joining us as well. Greatly appreciate everyone being here. Feel free you can drop some questions in or share whatever you want. We've got some questions for you coming down the road, but wanted to acknowledge you. Thank you so much for being here. Parenting as a lifetime commitment is a topic that I find so important to discuss and to think about. And we'll get into this again shortly, but I want to talk about this in the back of my book. And those of you that are listening, this is a really great question. In the back of my book, I have discussion questions. I always go back and look at them. And you know how when you ever make something, like the whole book was created, and I talked to my editor and I said, what do you think about doing like some workbook things in the back, like some deep questions? And she was like, absolutely. And when they pour out of you in 1 hour to write the questions in the back for every chapter, you know that you've got valuable things that are just pouring out of you. The first question that I love, and this was not something we were going to talk about, but you don't have to answer it now, but I want you to think about it. Why did you decide to become a parent? And, I have worked with every range of parents. Just like Dr. Q was saying, I've had grandparents raising them, aunts or uncles raising children that I've worked with, 2 moms, 2 dads, divorced parents, young parents, older parents, like any combination of parenting. I have worked with those parents and have learned so much from them also. And that question came to me right away of thinking, why did you decide to become a parent? And I asked that for myself. And I think it's interesting. And I love having it in the book. When I do workshops with parents about this question, it is something that I can have them keep personal. They don't have to share it with me if they don't want to. Some people didn't have a choice to become a parent. Some people want to be parents and they're not able to be a parent. So that piece in itself is important, but realizing that and thinking about that as we're going into parenting as a lifetime commitment is important. And if you're considering having a child, it's a good question to ask yourself. Right?
Yeah. So I think it's a very insightful question, very insightful. And it also brings up the cultural component to it too.
Yes.
Which for me, as a single Pakistani American Muslim woman, in my culture, I often ask, I've done this to more of my cousins than anything. There's like this expectation of like, when you get married, you have to have a kid in a year. Mm-hmm. It's like when I would ask them, like, why do you want children? They're like, well, isn't that the thing to do after?
Right. Exactly.
Like, it happens. Yes. Yet, do you think that's a good reason to have children just because society is doing it, or that's how we have done it generationally? So I think those things are very common too, where people don't really ask themselves, okay, do I really want children? Is this for me? Am I doing this just because that's how things have been done for centuries?
Right.
Because again, it's a lifetime commitment.
It's a lifetime
that
commitment,
you can't go back on.
which is why I brought that topic up. And so when you're going through the back sections of the book, even if you're not a parent, they're great conversations as you're planning on becoming a parent, because it is a lifetime commitment. It really is. And so it is amazing and beautiful. And we have some really great myths, kind of like a myth or a truth. Do we want to get into some of those right now? Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be great to pick everyone's brain that's in attendance. We decided that we would do a little activity to see where people's minds are.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to get started? Should we do the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. You go.
All
You're
right,
ready.
guys. So people that are able to send answers in the chat, please do so. And what we'll do is we'll go through the myth or fact statement, and then we will talk about it. Do you want to talk about it at the end, or we want to talk about it one by one?
Let's talk about it one by one. We'll kind of break it down.
Okay. All right. Let's see what other people say. All right. So the first one, true or false?
Yeah.
Parenting is always a sacrifice. True or false? Please send your answers in the chat box.
We would love to see your answers. True or false? Parenting is always a sacrifice. So some of you that are parents in the audience, let us know your thought. All right. I love it. We're getting some answers. I know it takes a minute to type those in. We've got a little time here. So this person, SR, thanks for being here, says it is true. SR, thank you for being here. It is because people have a time clock running. It also creates bonding between couples. Mm-hmm. And Stephanie, thank you for your answer of false. This one is false. Nope.
Okay.
From Dr. Rowe. Christy said false. Dr. Rowe, thank you so much. Parenting is always a sacrifice. Give everybody maybe another 10 seconds or so to drop their answers in.
So we have.
That's okay.
It's okay, Stephanie. It's okay.
Because you have a perspective. But I love this. So this is my point, right? I'm so excited that you're here, Stephanie, because whether you're choosing to be a parent one day, or you're an amazing aunt, or you're an educator, there's so many roles of parents in the world, right? I love that you're sharing your perspective, because I think that's important. So thank you for doing that. All right, what do you want to give me the answer?
I think, yeah, absolutely. After I make this point, I think one of the first distinctions I make with families about parents and father and mother is that each and every one of us can be a parent. Right? There's Absolutely. A distinction between being a parent and being a biological mother and biological father.
Sure.
But most people use those terms interchangeably, but you don't have to be a biological mother or father to be a parent. Like you said, Dr. Tanya, there's so many parents out there. Parenting in itself is a verb, which is doing. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm not a parent either, Stephanie, and I do want children. But I'm not a parent, a biological mother yet. All right. So parenting is always a sacrifice. So we had some truth and we had a few false. So the answer is false.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
And the reason why it's false, it's because of the term always. Right. So parenting requires sacrifice, yet most successful parents are those that are able to balance their own needs, their own wants and desires while they are showing up in their parenting.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, right, to think about that when you are a parent or you're becoming a parent, finding an amazing balance in your life is really important for you to be able to do, so that you are not giving of your whole self constantly to another human, in any relationship that you are in. And I think it's we selected this one about parenting as being a sacrifice because we wanted to really talk about that, as we've talked about this being a lifetime commitment. Being committed for a lifetime doesn't mean that you're sacrificing who you are and the things that you enjoy in life for another person. And one of the things that Dr. Q and I really want to do is create this beautiful parenting village for you, where you can come every month and you can learn something new. And we'll, I'm sure we'll have other things that we'll want to do together to help expand this parenting, this community, but we're really trying to develop and build this community for you so that you have another outlet, another place to get some new ideas and to think about other ways that you can be an active parent, be involved in your child's life, and not make yourself feel like you're sacrificing your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those of you in the audience that said absolutely not, what are some tips that you have had that have helped you balance, if you want to drop them in, some things that have helped you balance, your parenting role along with keeping your own identity? So go ahead and drop those in. I'll go on. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about this one, or do you want me to go to the next one, Dr. Q?
Yeah, I wanted to just add in there that we as individuals, as humans, right, we make sacrifices every day. They just look very different, right? So for example, if we decide to go, you're invited to 2 different events, right? You decide to go to this one versus the other one, right? That's also a choice, right? But in many ways, when you become a parent, you may be in a dilemma where your child wants you to take them somewhere else, right? Versus you going somewhere where you're invited, right? So there are, life is full of situations that come up where you do make sacrifices, right? Yet it's the intensity and the significance of the sacrifices matters. When you find yourself sacrificing who you are, right? Kind of like the intangible stuff, right? Like your dreams, your desires, your mission, vision. When you find yourself doing that, it ultimately impacts how you show up as a parent, because you may start feeling angry and resentful towards your children, right? So, of course, that will impact your parenting, which is something we want to avoid, right? Anger and resentment, which is why it's good to have a balance and figure out, okay, what am I willing to sacrifice? What am I not willing to sacrifice? So I wanted to note that out there. And a lot of times parents, it's very common to hear, well, we became parents, we have to make sacrifices. It comes with parenting.
Right.
And I say sacrifices come with life. It just depends on which sacrifice you're willing to make and which one you should not make.
Dr. Q, that is a beautiful way to say that. I absolutely love that. I also want to make a statement about, parenting from 20 years ago, parenting from 30 years ago, from 40 years ago have changed. And oftentimes those of us who are parents, we have learned how to be a parent from how we were parented, whether it be positive or negative things that we bring into our parenting. We're using things in our past experiences to be able to do that. And one of the things that I think is important for you to realize is that I can't be the parent that my mom was. Being a parent in 1970 was very different than being a parent in 2000. My mom did not work full time. She worked part time. The neighborhood was different. Sports and the expectations of being a parent were different as far as my brother played softball one night or baseball one night a week. I had dance one night a week. Now where these kids are all very involved in clubs and, club sports and 5 nights a week of activities. And there's so much more. And maybe both parents are working now. The dynamic of the parent has changed so much. So you have to learn, what are you going to sacrifice? How do you find that balance in your life? because it's probably going to look different than the examples maybe that are even around you.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out how you can do that and find a good balance is important. I love this, Christy. Thank you so much. Happy parents make better parents. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I always say amazing positive things about my mom. She is an amazing mother. She always has been amazing. But she never understood when I needed to go away for the weekend with my husband, whenever I needed to go take a night for myself. She said, I never felt like that as a parent. And I said, well, you also didn't work full time and didn't go to college working on your doctorate at the same time while you were raising your kids. A little bit different, Mom. And she's like, oh, yeah, I think you're right. So it's okay to challenge that. Thank you, Damien. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, parenting, it changes intergenerationally. It has to. It has to for so many different reasons. Some good, some bad, which we'll get into a little bit later. So, for the sake of time, Dr. Tanya, let's go to the second one.
All right. So, is this a true or false? Once your child becomes an adult, your parenting responsibilities continue. True or false? Once your child becomes an adult, your parenting responsibilities continue. Drop your answer in the chat. And we'll go into that. Now, as you're answering that question, Dr. Q and I kind of giggled because she said, do you have a parenting adults in that book of yours? And I'm like, no, that's a whole nother book, So
Yeah.
I'll have to work on that one another time. So true or false?
True or false? Once your child becomes an adult, your parenting responsibilities continue. Okay.
Thank you, SR, for sharing that with us. So the answer is, oh, we got one here. Here we go. Here's one. Here we go. Oh, good job. It is true. Your parenting responsibilities continue. I just want to shout out, I do a lot of work I've worked with kids in high school, kids in middle school, and there is not a age all of a sudden when kids do not need their parents any longer. That there's just not like, whoop, they turn 14. I don't need to help them anymore with schoolwork or ask them what they're doing or pay attention to who they're talking about online. Nope, you're still a parent. Oh, they turned 16. I can just back off. Nope, you still have to go back in. They're 18, they're 20, they're 22. You're still a parent the whole time. Now, I love how that Stephanie added this in. You are, your parenting responsibilities continue, but they change, and they do. They change and evolve just like they did when your kids were young and they were toddlers. I always say when my kids were little, they needed me physically. And as they got older, they needed me emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your thoughts on that, Dr. Q?
I absolutely agree. As I said earlier, once you hop on that roller coaster, you can't hop off. It just looks different time to time, year by year, age, right? But even as your child evolves and grows and gets married, has their own children, you're always going to be a parent, especially if it's a healthy relationship where your child will seek guidance and support, right? At some point, it does get to a place where, depending on what kind of what kind of attachment, what kind of relationship you have, where it shifts from, more advice, right, on how you would move versus them actually, going with what you're saying. It becomes more peer driven, right? Parent to parent versus parent to grandparent or parent to parent. So, but your kids will always need you. And that could be something as simple as they could be 40, 50 years old and just want a hug from you as a parent.
I have the best story to share with you. It is a personal story. I've shared this on lots of platforms, so forgive me if you've already heard it. But last year, probably about this time, I talked to my mother every day. I'm in my 50s. My mom said to me, we were on the phone one day just chatting away. And she said, can I stop you for just 1 minute? And I said, sure. And she said, "Can I just tell you how much I love you and how important you are to me? I am just blessed to have you in my life, and I'm so glad God gave you to me." And I was like, "Thank you, Mom." And now I'm going to tell you, I have a very secure relationship with my mother. It's not uncommon for her to tell me she loves me. I already know that. I'm very secure in that. But if I can tell you the impact that that made for weeks on end, that would pop into my brain, that those words came, just she just said them. So imagine, right, being 20, being 17, being 25 and hearing those words from your parent, right? There's and you probably know the clinical side of this. I remember reading some research at one point in time about the voice of your mother is calming to you, right? And so, at any age when we have troubles or we're having stress or we're making big life decisions like our kids as they're growing up are doing, just hearing and talking to their parent can soothe them
Yeah.
and can make them feel content, right?
Yeah. And that's such a powerful example.
Mm-hmm.
And it warms my heart to hear that. And, and just kind of reflecting on my own relationship with my mom and over the years. She's no longer here, but she's very, very close to me, both my mom and dad. And I would trade anything in the world to hear her voice again.
Of course.
I
Absolutely.
actually have one of her last voicemails saved,
Mm-hmm.
both my mom and dad, that I
Oh,
listen to sometimes. And so imagine actually hearing something so powerful, right? It's that only voice that you need to live life.
yeah.
It's a very important. Your parents' voices are very important. And this is where we get into talking about attachment, get into talking about traumas, right? We get into talking about the world can treat you in so many different ways, but when you come home and you feel loved and cared for, that influences, or those influences outside of the house are way lower, right? Or less significant when you
Absolutely.
have a sanctuary at home.
Or a place to go or a person to call, right? And that is so powerful. And I want to people to understand, and I want them to feel like you can grow with your child at any age that your child is at. So if your child is in their 30s and you're listening, I know that SR said he's a grandparent, so your children are obviously old enough to be childbearing ages. And if you feel that maybe you haven't said things to them that you wished you would have, this is the perfect time. You can continue to grow and evolve that relationship and make it what you want it to be because you have your lifetime to parent them. And that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. With that,
there, didn't we? Wow.
We only got through 2, Dr. Tanya. Come on, let's go.
We got deep.
We did go deep. We did go deep. All right, number 3. You ready? True or false?
I'm ready. Go.
A stay-at-home parent is better than a working parent.
A stay-at-home parent is better than a working parent.
A stay-at-home parent. A stay-at-home parent is better than a working parent.
All right. I
okay,
love the
SR said false.
Mm-hmm.
Both depends on the parent. Okay.
What do you think? A stay-at-home parent is better than a working parent.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we got some good answers.
Good
Stephanie's on a
answer.
roll right now.
Yeah, she is.
All
Uh,
right. False.
Christy gave us a false.
So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to give you the answer. The answer is false. There is a lot of talk and assumption around working moms, especially, right? Whenever, let's say, children are having trouble or, they're acting up or not doing well in school and the mom is working, I know in my culture, they're like, well, you shouldn't be working then. It automatically goes to, well, this is what happens when you step outside of the house and you forget your primary parenting responsibilities and you want to go out and make money, which takes away from the fact that you don't know what the family's finances are, right? So there's so many layers of that, but we're not going to unpack that today. However, that is a false statement. What we need to know is the correct answer is it really depends on the parenting unit. What works for them.
That's what Ima was saying. Depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
I believe was the type that she wanted to put in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, right? You can be a working parent and come home and have a great relationship with your kids because you move that way. Mm-hmm. Or you can be a home parent at home all day, every day and not spend any time with them. Right? It's about finding a balancing act and just recognizing where the needs are and showing up in the way that your children need. And the reality is, even if you are a stay-at-home or stay-at-home dad, eventually you're going to venture out and go want to work and have your own life in a different way as your kids' needs change. And they don't need you to babysit 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
Right? So you also see transitions in parenting as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it is, you said it perfectly. It really just depends. They both have their strengths. They both have their challenges. And so, I think sometimes when you're an at-home parent, you have to really probably have some focused effort to spend time with your kiddos sometimes because you're busy doing household things or, running here and there and doing those types of things. And when you're, a working parent, maybe you're able to spend more quality time together because the work during the day is done. You know what I mean? So it really just depends. It depends on the person. It depends on your routine. But here's the tip that I have for you for that. Regardless of whether you are the working parent or you are the at-home parent, I encourage you to reflect and think about what is the quality of time that you're spending with your kids? And is it meeting the needs of your kids? Is it meeting the needs of you? And take a minute and look at that. And maybe I'm a big write down, type it, put it in a spreadsheet, however you want to do it. Take a look at it and think about it for a minute and think about, is this meeting your need and the needs of your kids? And go in there and see what adjustments can you make. And I think that's one of the key takeaways anytime I talk to parents is, what are some things that you want to change and improve your relationship with your kids? And how can you do that? So take a minute and look at that. How's that working out for you? Because everybody's different, like you said.
Yeah. Self-awareness is a huge component of being authentic and transparent and compassionate in relationships, right? You have to look at how you can move differently to bring about change. And when we look at parent-child relationships, it's like any other relationship that I've talked about before. We usually have patterns that are going on. We're showing up in certain ways. So as the parent, I'm always challenging those parenting adults in the room to take the first step to change, which will lead to their child changing, especially when we're working on building healthy attachment and decreasing maladaptive behaviors, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Fellow educator, Dr. Rowe, I just want to acknowledge it looks differently for every child too. So it's not one size fits all, right? All of our kids are different. All right.
Absolutely.
So this one's a little similar to the one that we had before. Your child will always need you less as they get older. They will always need you less as they get older. True or false? Your child will always need you less. I love this. She's tagging Christy. Adult kids parenting is definitely different. A parent has to know they are grown. That's funny. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? True or false? Your child will always need you less as they get older. All right. I'm not seeing any answers. Maybe you're still typing, but we're going to go ahead for the sake of time and we're going to go on. So the answer is false. You know, your kids are going to need you differently, right? They're not going to need you less. That is what, thank you, Stephanie. They'll need you more at times and less at other times. Absolutely. Absolutely love that. Christy says false. SR says partly true. Thank you so much for participating. I appreciate it. They do. And I've always said this as parents, it's our responsibility. Whenever my kiddos have had a situation, whether it be medically or, you know, decisions that they've had to make, I always say, as a parent, it's my job to help pick you back up, dust you off, point you in the right direction, and let you go. And it's hard sometimes, right? Because we want to be very protective of our kids, especially those kids at those younger ages, middle school, high school. They make a wrong choice. They do something that you're like, oh, I wish they wouldn't have done that, or they're devastated over something. You know, you may have more of those crises, but as they get a little bit older, those problems get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're more impactful, right, for their life. So how do we help pick them up, dust them off, point them in a direction and say, you got this, spread your wings and go.
Especially when you told them not to go that way. Like when you told them you go fall and hurt yourself over there and then still run down that street.
You're like, okay. Okay, kid. I love that.
So what not to say is, I told you so.
That's right. That's right. I told you not to do that. Right. You go, this is what you say. What did we learn from that? Tell me what you learned from that.
What was your takeaway?
Do you think you're going to do that again? Oh, gosh.
All right. Let's move on to one more that I want to do. And then we'll shift gears to some of the other stuff because we don't have time to do all of these.
Yep.
Let's do the last one, Dr. T, which I believe is true or false. Parenting is always easier when you are married. What do you guys think?
Good
Parenting
one.
is always easier when you are married. True or false?
We're getting some answers coming in.
Okay, let's see.
We've got a true.
I think that may have been for the other answer.
Maybe we have a false.
Okay, false.
Oh, that might have been for the other answer. Maybe you're right. I don't know. It's easier when you have a partner or a family member. Someone's wise beyond their years.
Yeah, someone that has done their trauma work.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Thank you, Kay, for joining us.
False.
Emma, thank you.
All right, so we're going to go ahead. So that is very, very false. So while being married, right, obviously the goal is to co-parent, right? To have a support system so that you're not a single parent. Yet, if you don't have a healthy marriage, right, you're not going to be able to have a healthy co-parenting relationship. And oftentimes, if you can have a healthy co-parenting relationship, it doesn't matter whether you're married or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of couples that I work with that are no longer together and that are co-parenting well. In fact, they recognize they couldn't be together, and being separate actually allows them to show up in healthy ways as a co-parent. Because your kids are watching, they're always watching.
Always.
So just because you're married doesn't mean that parenting is easier. Sometimes actually it's harder.
So thanks for everyone sharing their experiences in the chat, their thoughts. You know, and I think oftentimes when we think about parenting, either being married or being single, we're talking about whether we choose to have a child being single or we choose to get a divorce. But we also have families who lose a parent, you know, who they have a health condition or they have an accident or something that takes their life. We also have them that all of a sudden get health conditions and they can't really be active parents. So there's lots of scenarios also when we're looking at that. But it's really important to find your village and to find ways to support your kids and you to really help you. So it's not easier. And then even when you're married, you probably may not have the same parenting views at all. And when you don't have the same parenting views and you're not on the same page, that creates even more tension, which is why if you don't have kids yet and you're considering having kids, I recommend you start having these conversations and think about some of the difficult things that you should talk about before you have a child so that you guys are on the same page together. No matter what your parenting unit looks like, have a conversation so that on tough topics.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned the conversation piece, because one of the things that I recommend for a couple who is looking to get married, and you know, they should obviously seek some type of premarital therapy or counseling. And in that, you know, there's a lot of different topics you should discuss. One of them often ends up being finances, right? On top of the list, right? Yet people don't think about like, hey, what about parenting? What is that going to look like? Right? Or even those scenarios, right? Like, what if your child comes to you and tells you they don't want to follow Islam anymore? What does that mean for you and me as two Muslim parents?
Right.
What if they come to you and disclose to you that they identify as a they? And these conversations were not happening 10 to 20 years ago.
No, they were not.
About parenting, right? So think about all the changes that have even happened, even in your parenting time period, right?
Absolutely.
But like, we're not automatically thinking that, because the assumption is if two people get together of a certain culture, we're going to follow those cultures' norms, and we're going to follow that religion. Yet it's important to know the what ifs. How are you going to deal with that? Are you going to accept your kid, or are you going to disown them? Where do we fall? Because if you don't accept my kid, I'm going to be like, bye, deuces. See you later.
Right. Absolutely.
That will be a deal breaker for me. That will be a deal breaker for me.
Yes, that's why this conversation is so important for people to start thinking about, you know, those conversations to have. And we'll go into it in a minute when we talk about my book, but there is some things that are really important to have conversations about.
Yeah, absolutely. So parenting. It requires a lot. So what we can do is, Dr. Tanya, let's move in because we only have about 10 more minutes.
Right. So I can go ahead and talk about my book. That's kind of next on the list. So I'll go ahead and jump into that for a few minutes. So this is my book, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual. I did drop it on the LinkedIn chat. I think it's like half off right now on Amazon. They run sales I don't even know about. So you can grab it there in paperback or Kindle. I recommend the paperback because in the back there are discussion questions for you to use. I tell everyone this, if you see the cover, this shows infancy up to a teen. This is a book that's kind of timeless. It goes through as you are raising your child. So you can go back in and think of some different answers. As your child is growing, the questions in the back, you're going to ask yourself you're going to answer them a little bit differently. Like the next question, what do you love the most about being a parent? What resources did you use to prepare yourself to become a parent? What's your recommendation for a new parent? There's just different things in here that you can always go back in and look at. How have the needs of your children evolved and changed? And so as your kids are evolving and changing, going back and rereading this and thinking about it. Now, the inside of the book is set up in, it is not like a brain research book. We're not talking brain research. We're talking practical advice, real life examples, personal stories of myself as a principal, personal stories of myself as a mom. And we go through the early years. The book is broke into, each chapter talks about a section of the early years, which is kind of that birth through 5 years old, 4 years old, the elementary years, which is that, kindergarten through 5th grade, and then those teen years, which is middle school through high school. And then, we also have a section that's not in the book, but we talk about here, is that young adult, like 18 and above, like we were talking about those young adults. And so inside here, there's lots of great chapters. We have just covered and talked a little bit about some of the things that would even be in chapter 1. So lots of great information for you to check out. So it is in the comment section, or you can just look up my name, Tanya Farron, on Amazon, and you can grab your copy. So let's talk about this. This was one thing we wanted to talk about, me bringing this practical advice or experience, and you having that clinical side. So what are some of the things that you help support families and kids with on that clinical side? And when is it time for them to come and see a therapist?
That's a very important question. And the answer to that is your time to seek therapy is when you're in preparation mode to be ready to have children, right? Mm-hmm. Your time to seek therapy or professional guidance, support, intervention is from the beginning, honestly. To me, it's all about prevention. Parenting in itself is a whole new journey, right? One that you can, like you wrote that manual, right? Right? You have an idea, you've seen people do things, but when you're in it, you're like clueless.
Right.
So I think preparation and planning should be very early on, especially with couples that are looking to be parents, right? Mm-hmm. Getting a head start on that will help you move differently in many different ways. Because what I do see clinically, Dr. Tanya, is that we usually see children and families and parents when they're at their last wits end.
Yes.
Right? When they can't handle it anymore, when they are literally ready to give up their child, when child protective service is involved and now it's mandated, when custody court battles are not solving anything, when the kid has gotten suspended from school or the kid has legal issues going on. So most people seek therapy when you have a huge main crisis. And all the red flags and all the things in before that are happening that led to that crisis are being dismissed and minimized. So I, as a therapist, often find myself, especially when I'm working with children and families, I come in when things are like at their worst.
Yes.
And I'm supposedly I'm supposed to fix it overnight. So I tell my families all the time, listen, I'm a therapist and a healer, but two things I'm not. I'm not a psychic and I'm not a miracle worker.
It's so true. I
And
mean,
I cannot do this. I cannot do this for you. You have to do it.
absolutely,
So,
100%. And that was, again, I'm going to jump back over onto my side of this book. I remember the day I came home and I had told probably 5 parents the same thing. And because I knew it was successful with kids, I knew what I was advising them to do was successful if they just went and did it. And I came home slightly frustrated to write this down, and then wrote it and shoved it in a drawer, and that was really the basis of the book. And it's so true, that you can't wait until it's too late, to do things. And that's what I said at the very beginning. People think that if they're asking for help as a parent, or they're seeking guidance from other people, or they're asking questions, that makes them look like they don't know what they're doing as a parent, when a lot of times we don't, because there is no class that you're taking as you're going through to be a parent. And so take these pieces here, get the book, attend these sessions, go to other parenting workshops, build your village, listen to other people. Doesn't mean you have to take every person's advice, but take parts of it and try it, And I think that's so important. But you do, and you're right. As I'm sitting here thinking of the families that I work with who are going to therapy, they are sort of at that rock bottom spot where they're almost feeling like it's too late, but it's not. Yeah. It's not too late. You just have a lot of work to do now.
Yeah. No. And I don't want the message to come across as in like, when you hit a certain point, it's done and over with, just give up, right?
Right. No.
I'm in the work of instilling hope, right?
Absolutely.
Staying hopeful. So some of the things, a few things that I just want to note here that I think are very important, that I see in all age groups, right? The developmental stages that you talk about in this book is at the core of everything for me as a family therapist, relational trauma expert, is attachment, which starts the minute you conceive a child.
Yep.
Right? You start building that attachment while you're pregnant.
Yes.
While you both are pregnant, right?
Yes.
So, and depending on your own anxiety, your own depression, your own traumas that you're experiencing, it's going to impact the baby. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, once the child is born, there's all these other things that are happening, right? Our environment does impact us. So when I see families in therapy, there's a rupture in attachment, a huge rupture, right? And we can do a whole session on attachment.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
So with that, part of the work is around, so, you and I made some bullet points. And so one of the bullet points we have on here in terms of successful parenting, right? One of the things that I think is a must is healing your own traumas and your wounded parts.
Yes.
You have to do that inner child work, that trauma work that impacts on how you show up in your relationships and your parenting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the second thing, we have 4 tips for you guys. The second thing is pouring into yourself so that you can give back to your kids. There's a lot of work that you can do for yourself. I'm going to give the Creative Living Ideas. My company is hosting the virtual wellness experience March 21st and 22nd. Dr. Qureshi is going to be there presenting, as well as Jamie, who is in the audience. Oh, she's not presenting. I'm sorry. She's made our magazines for us a few different times. So they're pretty amazing. But Dr. Rowe, who is in the audience, will be a presenter there as well. So, giving yourself opportunity to come to things, to learn how to heal yourself and to work on areas that are important for you is really important, so that you can give back to your kids. You don't have to sacrifice everything about yourself. You still have your own identity. You want to do the next one?
Yes. So the third tip is we're going to talk about this next session too. A full series is having a village, having resources, reaching out to resources, and also training. Any information that you can get on child development, right? What are the stages of parenting? What are the what does for being a first-time parent look like? So any type of training, sign yourself up. Look at all the resources that are available for you, because you're going to need it. And we'll talk more about that in our next session on how you create a community of people. And then last one, Dr. T.
Last one is parenting needs a plan and preparation. Like, we can't just wing it. Cannot just wing it. We need a plan. I've got the back of the book has things for you to plan out your parenting. It really does. It's going to make you think about it. I'm going to tell you that when I wrote my book, and I always tell people it's the tip of the iceberg, it is to get the conversation started. It is to get you thinking. I couldn't write every single detail in the book about what is best practices as a parent, but it gets you thinking and it gets you talking, and, read it with a couple of friends, get together, build your own parenting village. So get a plan together and make some preparation for it. We are at 1 hour and 2 minutes. Look at us go. Gosh.
I know. And we had to condense some of this stuff.
We did.
I think we over prepped for this session.
It was good. It was amazing. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So guys, thank you so much for each one of you that have joined us tonight to kick off this amazing Parenting in the Trenches. So this is we just scratched the surface of what we're going to talk about, and it's going to get meatier. It's going to get deeper as the months go on. If there are any topics that you want us to discuss, please send us a DM on LinkedIn, Instagram. We both have Dr. T has her Creative Living Ideas. I have Umid Center. So we will be back next month, the last Tuesday of the month, which is, I think, February 25th, I believe, at 7 p.m.
Yep. That is where
we'll
be.
We will be discussing another great topic.
And if you've joined us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You'll be able to see the next one on there. If you're on LinkedIn, subscribe to Creative Living Ideas channel. Click the bell. It'll give you a notification so that you know when we are doing our next one. And if we sprinkle anything in between, you don't want to miss that as well. Thank you guys all very much for coming here tonight. It was a pleasure to work with you and to listen to you and have you join us in the chat. We appreciate you. Everybody have a great evening. I'm going to go ahead and end now. Bye, everyone.